Number 10. Real life in Nauru. Most countries worry about not having enough resources. Nauru had the opposite problem. This tiny island in the Pacific had one resource that made it extremely rich, and then helped destroy much of the island itself. Nauru is one of the smallest countries in the world, floating like a flat pancake in the Pacific Ocean, with only about 10,000 people and a land area of just around 8 square miles. It is so small you can drive around most of the island in less than an hour. In fact, the whole island has only about 19 miles of roads. There is no official capital, no major city skyline, no long rivers, and no huge tourism industry like Fiji, Bali, or the Maldives. But for a time, Nauru was unbelievably wealthy. The reason was phosphate, a valuable mineral used in fertilizer. And the strange part is where much of that phosphate came from. Ancient seabird droppings that built up over a long time and turned into a resource buried in the land. Nauru became one of the richest places on Earth per person. The government had money, people had a high standard of living. For a tiny island in the middle of the ocean, it almost sounded like a miracle. Even the country's national symbols point back to this history. Nauru's coat of arms includes a symbol connected to phosphorus, and its national motto is "God's will first." The flag is also simple but meaningful. A blue background for the Pacific Ocean, a yellow line across the middle for the equator, and a 12-pointed white star below it, representing Nauru's location south of the equator and its traditional tribes. But the miracle had a cost. To get the phosphate, much of the island's interior was dug up. Today, large parts of Nauru's center are covered with jagged limestone pinnacles, abandoned mining land, and soil that is very difficult to farm. From above, the island can look beautiful around the edges, with blue ocean and a narrow coastal strip. But inside, it looks almost like a damaged moonscape. Nauru has no army, no navy, and no air force. It only has a small local police force, while Australia takes responsibility for broader security and defense support. The infrastructure that exists here is built more for survival than for expansion. Even the railway is unusual. A narrow-gauge line only about 4 miles long, originally used to move phosphate. So Nauru may look simple on a map, but it is not simple at all. By the way, have you ever heard of Nauru before today? And which country are you watching from right now? Leave a comment below. Number 9. What Nauruan women really look like. That geography shapes people more than any beauty trend ever could. Most Nauruan women have dark brown to jet black hair, usually thick and naturally wavy, shaped more by genetics and salt air than styling tools. Their skin tones range from warm brown to deep bronze, reflecting a life spent under strong equatorial sun. The overall look feels grounded and natural rather than polished or dramatic. Clothing follows the same logic. Daily outfits are simple, loose, and practical. Lightweight dresses, long skirts, t-shirts, and sandals dominate everyday life. Tight or highly stylized fashion is rare, not because it is forbidden, but because heat, humidity, and comfort always win. But tradition has never fully disappeared. Long before modern clothing arrived, Nauru's tribes wore garments made directly from nature. Coconut leaves were stripped, woven, and layered into fabric-like pieces. Women traditionally wore short skirts made from fresh coconut leaves, paired with body adornments like shells or flowers, while men used woven leaves as loincloths or simple wraps. During cultural festivals and community gatherings today, those traditional styles still reappear. Number 8. The world's most obese country. Today, Nauru holds a record no country wants to have. If you put 100 Nauruans in one room, about 95 of them would be overweight. And out of those same 100 people, around 72 would be classified as obese. That makes Nauru one of the heaviest nations on Earth. The health impact is painful. In a group of 10 Nauruans, more than 4 may be living with diabetes. That is not just a number on paper, it means more families dealing with kidney failure, heart disease, amputations, and long-term health problems. This crisis is not new. Since the 1980s, Nauru has been widely known as one of the most obese countries on the planet, and it has carried that label for decades. While many adults suffer from overnutrition, many children face the opposite problem. If you look at 100 children in Nauru, about 27 may be underweight. So on the same tiny island, adults can be dangerously overweight, while many children still do not get enough proper nutrition. So what happened? Before independence in 1968, life in Nauru looked very different. People lived mainly from fishing and small-scale farming. Their food was simple but healthier: fresh fish, coconuts, fruits, and local vegetables. Daily life also required more physical work, so people were generally leaner and healthier. Then phosphate money changed everything. As wealth poured in, farming and fishing slowly declined. Imported food became normal. Traditional meals were replaced by processed products shipped from overseas. Fresh fruits and vegetables became less common, while sugary drinks, fatty foods, canned products, and ultra-processed meals became part of everyday life. At the same time, people moved less. Fishing faded, physical work declined. Life became more sedentary. Eating, drinking, and watching TV became more common than working the land or going out to fish. Children were born into a harder reality. Mining had damaged much of the land, fresh food was limited, and families depended on expensive imports. So many children did not get the nutrition they needed, even while the adult population struggled with obesity. The government has tried to respond. There have been walking campaigns, national walking days, and taxes of up to 30% on sugary drinks, candy, butter, milk, and processed foods. But the hard question remains: was it already too late? When a country loses its farmland, changes its diet, and builds unhealthy habits across generations, reversing the damage is extremely difficult. The story of Nauru serves as a strong warning, so please pay attention to your diet to ensure the best possible health. Number 7. Strange facts about Nauru. Before becoming independent, this small island was controlled by several foreign powers. In the late 1800s, it came under German rule. Later, it was connected to British, Australian, and New Zealand administration. And before the world knew it as Nauru, early European visitors called it Pleasant Island because the place seemed peaceful and welcoming. But Nauru's story was not always pleasant. During World War II, Japan occupied the island in 1942. Even today, reminders of that period still remain. In some places, you can find old Japanese war relics, rusting equipment, underground bunkers, caves, and hidden military sites slowly being swallowed by the island's vegetation. Nauru also has many secret caves, shelters, and old military remains. You can still find ammunition on the ground in some of the denser forests, and all of it can be explored on foot. Ask a local person to guide you, and they will show you their favorite secret spots. And that is another strange thing about Nauru: almost nobody visits. Each year, only around 200 tourists are said to come here. That is less than 0.0002% of the world's population. So if you ever visit Nauru, you are not just going to a small country, you are going to one of the least visited places on Earth. And here is one more surprise. Queen Elizabeth II once visited Nauru in 1982. Yes, the same tiny island that most travelers will never reach was once visited by the British monarch. Nauru is part of the Commonwealth, and that visit remains one of the more unusual moments in the island's modern history. Number 6. Dishes that reflect Nauru culture. Imagine you are sitting just a few feet from the Pacific Ocean. There is no fancy menu, no background music, just the sound of waves and a plate placed in front of you. On it is coconut fish, the most iconic Nauruan dish. The fish was swimming earlier today. It has been marinated in fresh lemon juice and thick coconut milk, then wrapped in banana leaves and gently grilled. You take the first bite and immediately taste the richness of coconut. The next food is tuna, but not in the sushi-style presentation many people might imagine. Sometimes it is lightly seared, sometimes grilled, sometimes eaten nearly raw with just lemon and a pinch of salt. In Nauru, tuna does not need to be dressed up. When seafood goes from the water to your plate within hours, less really is more. As meals continue, you might be offered palusami, a dish shared across Pacific Islands and two embraced in Nauru. Taro leaves are folded around coconut cream, sometimes with fish or meat inside, then slowly cooked until everything melts together. It is soft, rich, and filling, and more importantly, it brings people together, passed around, and talked over. Then comes something more local and seasonal, like Yeren crab, named after the capital district. The meat is naturally sweet and often simmered in coconut milk or grilled over open fire. If you are lucky enough to eat this during crab season, it usually means you are part of a larger gathering, not just a meal. For those expecting luxury, lobster exists too, pulled from the warm, clear waters around the island. It is typically grilled or steamed, sometimes served with a creamy coconut-based sauce. The setting does most of the work here, eating lobster with the ocean in front of you. Between main dishes, you might be handed a piece of pandanus fruit. It is fibrous, starchy, slightly nutty, and very different from sweet tropical fruits most people are used to. This is survival food, the kind that sustained islanders for generations. If the day ends with something warm, it could be geta-geta, a traditional seafood stew made from whatever the sea offered that day. Fish, shellfish, ginger, garlic, sometimes chili, all simmered into a deeply savory broth. You may also encounter octopus, usually marinated in citrus or coconut milk before being grilled or added to stews. This is often prepared communally, turning cooking itself into a shared experience rather than a private task. For something sweet, banana fritters appear at gatherings and family meals. Sliced bananas are battered and fried until golden, crispy outside and soft inside. And finally, a drink. Coconut toddy, tapped directly from coconut palms, is offered either fresh and sweet or lightly fermented. Sipping it as the sun goes down feels less like drinking and more like participating in everyday island life. Number 5. The strangest places in Nauru. Right in the heart of this tiny island lies Buata Lagoon, one of Nauru's most unusual natural sights. It is not a freshwater lake, but a saltwater lagoon sitting inside an extinct volcanic crater. Surrounded by some of the island's rare greenery, Buata feels like an oasis in the middle of a landscape otherwise scarred by phosphate mining. Locals see it as a peaceful escape from the heat, although swimming here is uncommon. The water is salty, still, and heavy, more like floating in the ocean without waves. If you head upward instead, you will reach Command Ridge, officially the highest point in Nauru. Highest might sound impressive, until you realize it rises only about 213 feet above sea level. From this modest height, you can see nearly the entire country in one slow turn. What makes Command Ridge strange is not its elevation, but its history. During World War II, Japanese forces built bunkers and artillery positions here. Today, rusted remains of war sit among jagged limestone and mining debris, creating an eerie mix of military history and environmental damage. Along the coast, Anibare Bay looks like a postcard version of the Pacific. White sand, turquoise water, and endless sky. Yet this is one of the most dangerous beaches on the island. Unlike many Pacific beaches, Anibare has no coral reef to soften the waves. Strong currents and sudden swells make swimming risky, so most people admire it from the shore. It is a place that looks inviting but quietly warns you to keep your distance. Number 4. Meaningful festivals leave a lasting impression. Festivals in Nauru are not massive spectacles with fireworks and huge crowds. Instead, they feel personal, communal, and deeply tied to identity. When something is celebrated here, almost the entire country is involved, and with a population of just over 10,000 people, that already tells you how different the atmosphere feels. The most important celebration is Independence Day, held every year on January 31st. This marks the day Nauru gained independence in 1968. On this day, the island slows down and comes together. Traditional dances, singing in the Nauruan language, storytelling, and cultural performances take center stage. You will see people wearing traditional clothing made from natural materials, decorated with flowers and shells. Food is shared openly, and the focus is less on spectacle and more on remembering who they are and how far they have come. Another key cultural event is Angam Day, celebrated on October 26th. This day is deeply emotional for Nauruans. Angam roughly means jubilation or achievement, and the holiday marks the moment when the population recovered from near extinction after World War I. At one point, the entire Nauruan population dropped below 1,500 people. Angam Day celebrates survival itself. Ceremonies, traditional performances, and community gatherings honor ancestors and remind everyone how fragile a nation can be. Faith also plays a major role in Nauruan life, which is why Christmas is widely celebrated across the island. But don't expect flashy decorations or commercial chaos. Christmas in Nauru is more about church services, choir singing, family meals, and quiet reflection. In coastal communities, you may also come across local fishing and cultural celebrations, which are not fixed on the calendar. These gatherings often happen when the sea is generous. Music, dance, shared seafood, and storytelling turn everyday survival into moments of joy. They exist for the community itself, and being invited to one is a rare window into real island life. And while not an official festival, traditional dance performances appear frequently during national events and school celebrations. Movements often imitate the ocean, birds, and daily island activities. The dances are rhythmic, expressive, and passed down through generations, acting as a living record of Nauru's culture. Number 3. A country without a capital city. Almost every country on Earth is built around the idea of a capital city. It is usually the political heart of the nation, the place where power, government, and national identity converge. In some rare cases, this idea is stretched rather than broken. Bolivia officially recognizes 2 capitals, while South Africa is even more unusual, operating with 3 separate capitals for different branches of government. But there is an even rarer category of countries that take a completely different path. Instead of having one capital or several, they simply have none at all. There is no city you can point to and say, "This is the capital." Instead, government offices are spread across different districts, mainly in Yaren, which functions as the de facto administrative center. Parliament meets there, the airport is nearby, and most government buildings are located in the area, but legally, Yaren is not a capital. This makes Nauru one of the very few countries in the world operating without an official capital at all. It fits the island's scale perfectly. When your entire country can be driven around in half an hour, the idea of a single political center almost feels unnecessary. Imagine landing in a nation where there is no capital to visit, no central city to check off your list, just districts blending into one another along the coastline. That's exciting. Number 2. From resource riches to economic ruin. The Republic of Nauru may look insignificant on a world map, but its economic story is anything but small. This tiny island in the Pacific has experienced one of the most dramatic boom and bust cycles in modern economic history, so extreme that economists often use it as the clearest real-world example of the so-called resource curse. When Europeans first encountered Nauru in 1789, it appeared to be nothing more than a quiet tropical island, covered in coconut trees and surrounded by white sand. For decades, no one imagined that beneath its surface lay a fortune. That changed when a British geologist discovered phosphate, a mineral formed from seabird droppings mixed with coral and algae. Unusual as it sounds, phosphate was incredibly valuable, essential for fertilizers, animal feed, and later even cosmetics. By the early 20th century, nearly 80% of the island contained phosphate deposits, and foreign powers quickly moved in. Germany took control first, followed by Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom, turning Nauru into what many called a white gold island. Over time, more than 80 million tons of phosphate were shipped out, generating enormous wealth. After gaining independence in 1968, Nauru inherited this resource-driven economy, but also became completely dependent on it. Large parts of the island had already been stripped bare, leaving behind jagged limestone formations and land so damaged it resembled a lunar landscape. Even though leaders knew the phosphate would eventually run out, the country had few alternatives. Its population was small, its location isolated, and other industries were almost impossible to develop. As a result, extraction continued at full speed. For a brief moment, the gamble seemed to pay off. During the 1970s and 1980s, Nauru became the richest country in the world per person. In 1981, average income reached about $27,000, equivalent to roughly $88,000 today, more than twice that of the United States at the time. Citizens enjoyed free healthcare, free education, generous welfare, and high living standards. Luxury cars appeared on an island, and many people stopped working. However, the foundation of that prosperity was fragile. As phosphate reserves declined, the government rushed to replace lost income. Nauru reinvented itself as an offshore banking haven, selling passports and allowing foreign banks to register with minimal oversight. For a short period, more than 400 shell banks existed on paper, many linked to money laundering and tax evasion. In 2001, the United States labeled Nauru a financial crime state under the Patriot Act, and by 2005, the entire offshore banking system was shut down. Another attempt involved creating a national investment fund to secure wealth for future generations, similar to Norway's oil fund, but poor management, risky deals, and corruption drained it almost completely. Some decisions bordered on surreal. Millions of dollars were poured into a London stage production titled Leonardo the Musical, a fictional love story involving Leonardo da Vinci and the Mona Lisa. The show flopped, becoming a symbol of how recklessly the country's fortune was spent. By the early 2000s, the collapse was unavoidable. After inflation adjustments, national GDP fell to around $32 million. Unemployment surged to 90%. And the education system nearly disintegrated. In 2001, Australia offered to pay for Nauru to become a refugee center for the Australians, and the island nation was too poor to say no. As a result, by 2008, Nauru had become not only a money laundering hub in the South Pacific, but also a gathering place for refugees. Today, Nauru's economy remains extremely small. With a GDP of only about $133 million, it is currently the world's third smallest economy, slightly larger than only Montserrat and Tuvalu. While average income per person sits near $12,000, close to the global average, the country now survives largely on foreign aid and revenue from hosting offshore detention facilities. The contrast is staggering. In less than a single lifetime, Nauru went from unimaginable wealth to near bankruptcy, leaving behind a stark reminder that natural resources can be both a blessing and a curse when long-term planning is ignored. Number 1. The shockingly high cost of living. Even though Nauru is tiny, remote, and has very little tourism infrastructure, it is not cheap at all. You realize that almost everything you are about to use, eat, or touch has traveled thousands of miles to get here. And that distance shows up very clearly on the bill. Start with food. Because almost everything is imported, grocery prices are brutal. A simple weekly grocery run easily costs $120 to $150, meaning food alone can reach $400 to $500 per month, and fresh vegetables are limited. Eating out does not save you either, since restaurants rely on the same imported ingredients and pass those costs straight to customers. Housing is the real hit. Renting a small, basic home or apartment in Nauru typically costs around $800 to $1,200 per month, depending on location and availability. And don't expect modern comfort. Homes are simple, and maintenance can be inconsistent. Electricity is expensive and unreliable. With constant heat and air conditioning, monthly power bills often reach $150 to $250. Internet access is slow but costly, usually around $80 to $120 per month, while mobile data plans can easily add another $40 to $60. Transportation is limited, but fuel is not cheap. Even with short distances, fuel and basic transport expenses can still run about $80 to $100 per month. Now put it all together, to simply survive 1 month in Nauru, you are looking at roughly $1,700 to $2,300 per month. And that is without entertainment, travel, or comfort. That number might sound normal in a big global city. But here's the twist. In Nauru, that budget buys you very little choice, limited services, and almost no modern infrastructure. So here's the real question. If you had to spend over $2,000 a month just to live on one of the most isolated islands on Earth, would you stay or book the next flight out? If you've made it this far, Nauru has probably challenged everything you thought you knew about countries. So give this video a like and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next unbelievable destination we explore.